Isaiah 6:8. Isaiah 6:8 verses 5, Isaiah 6 verses 5 through 8. After seeing everything before me, I said, it's all over. I'm doomed, for I'm a sinful man. I have filthy lips, and I live among people with filthy lips. Yet I've seen the King, the Lord of heaven's armies. One of the seraphim flew to me with a burning coal he had taken from the altar with a pair of tongs. He touched my lips with it and said, see, this coal has touched your lips. Now your guilt is removed, your sins are forgiven. Then I heard the Lord asking, whom shall I send as a messenger to this people? Who will go for us? And I said, here I am, Lord, send me. Now, have you ever had someone say something to you, or you've read something in the right moment and it just kind of flipped a switch? Does that happen to anyone? Right? It just kind of sparks something inside you. It happens when it feels like everything meets right at a specific point. Because you can hear something one day and it just wash over you, and then the next day you hear it and it's totally different. Here I am, send me. You see, I was in college in the middle of my second semester of my freshman year, and those words hit me. They ignited something in me that I didn't really understand, but it pushed me forward. Send me. You see, that second semester I was in a place where I was totally lost. I thought I was following the plan. I thought I was doing the right thing, right? That's what you do. You graduate high school, you go to college. That's the right thing to do. That's what you do. That's what people do. That's what we do, right? We've done it. You take the next step, you move forward. But every time I tried to take that next step forward, it all seemed to fall apart. You see, I was in the second half of my first semester, and my GPA was 0.02, too low to get into my major. To retake these classes would put me behind a whole year. That's not part of the plan. That's not the next step, because then instead of graduating in 4 years, I'm graduating in 5 years, and I have plans to be married, and it's not lining up. Every time I tried to take the next right step, my foot would fail. There was no destination in sight. There was no real direction. And I'm going to be honest with you, 19 years old, it was the first time in my life I had prayed on my knees. In a desperation moment, I found myself kneeling on the cracked, dirty tile of my dorm room floor, not knowing where to go next because student debt is terrifying, and I was laying it all out before God. Where do I go from here? And after sitting there in silence for a little bit, these two words popped in my head: send me. I didn't know what they meant, but I knew that they were somewhere in the Bible, so I did what any good student does. I Googled, and I clicked on the very first link that popped up, and it took me to Bible Gateway. Anyone know that website, Bible Gateway? Awesome website. And it had it right there at the top. Then I heard the Lord asking, whom shall I send as a messenger to this people who will go for us? Here I am, send me. Now, I didn't know where I was going, but that was the moment I prayed the most dangerous prayer I've ever prayed in my whole life. Here I am, send me. A switch flipped. A fire was ignited. And I was heading out, not knowing where I was going, but I knew I had to go. So has anyone ever said something to you that did that? That set a fire in you? Maybe there's a song that kind of like starts to stir you, and when you hear it, it starts to build in your heart. I played sports all through high school. I played sports in college, and for me, songs, like it flips something. Here's one maybe that might do it for you. Okay, no, this isn't hitting. Let's try this next one here. and build until all of a sudden we all take off onto the field. I'm shaking right now. Like it gets you, doesn't it? Okay, I see some of you are on board, but not yet. Maybe this next one will get you. This is my all-time favorite. Now, for those of you that don't know, that's from Jurassic Park. All-time favorite movie. That's the theme. You got it right there, yeah. Okay? Best movie. Best movie. But that's not, after growing up with that movie, 5 years ago, I found my favorite version of that song. My favorite version. As we prepared to live our lives together, here we are, send us. It's a dangerous prayer. It's a very, very dangerous prayer because when you've reached the point where you have open-handed obedience, where the Spirit is leading you into the unknown, you're about to head out into the jungle. You can't see what's ahead of you, and you have to trust in God's guidance. And it's an intimidating moment to hear the call to head out into the jungle. Because let me tell you something, are you ready? There's dinosaurs in the jungle. There's dinosaurs out there. Never in 50 million years could Kirsty and I have ever imagined that going out where there's no road, heading into the jungle, that we would run into dinosaurs. They're out there. As we travel through the jungle of life, we experience the exhausting hike, the hill climbs, the swampy swamps of heat and humidity and just bogging us down, the treacherous descents as we come off the mountain, rock slides, poisonous plants, the things you would typically expect on a hike through the jungle. But every now and then there's moments of peace, perfect weather, flat trail as we go out. But regardless of all of that, it's important that you're prepared to hike through the jungle. It's important you're prepared, and it helps a lot to have a guide. It helps to have a guide as you go through the jungle, someone who's gone before you. The best trail guides, they have the trail mapped out. right? They know when you walk up to the trail and that you see the map, they already have a copy of that written in their notebook, so they know what the next right step will be. And they've written it down, and as they've walked the trail, they've made notes on the trail. Hey, there's a sharp left turn here, but what the map doesn't say is the sharp left turn has a pretty steep climb with it. Hey, looks like a pretty straight path, but actually it's at 50 degrees downhill, and you're going to spend most of it sliding on your butt. Trail guides can help lead through that. In fact, really good trail guides journal every day they're on the trail. They journal every day on the trail, so that way when they've reached their destination, their journal can be handed back to the people following them and know what to expect every step of the way. And really good trail guides make notes in their journal to help those who might have stepped off the trail, because it happens. Maybe you're distracted and you miss the trail marker and you take a step in the wrong direction. Maybe you step off the trail to go sightseeing because, over there looks really cool. And you turn around and you're like, well, where's the trail? Is this foreign? Do we have hikers? Is this foreign? Anyone hikers? One. Okay, not really. Well, then you're going to want to pay attention because this is really important. You are on a hike right now. You're on the hike through the jungle of life. And that's a really, really simple metaphor, but it fits so perfectly. Whether or not you realize it, the life that you're living as you walk through the jungle is leaving a guide behind you for those that are following. Whether you realize it or not, your life is a guide to those that are following you. And God is at work in that story. Your past, your present, the choices you've made, whether you've stayed on the path diligently going forward or perhaps you've gotten a little distracted, the Spirit of God is with you every step of the way. And no matter where you're at right now, whether you're taking a break, sitting on the side of the trail, or out into the deep, dark jungle, your story's being written, and your story matters because it's leading those who are following you. As we travel through the jungle of life, it's important to have a guide, someone who knows the terrain, someone who's gone before you, because this is the craziest part. This is the part no one told me. You and I were not created to stay on the trail. We were created to go into the jungle. We were created to follow the voice of peace, hope, and love off of the path into the darkness where the dinosaurs are. Active discipleship is about seeking the Spirit of God and following the example that Jesus lived before us. Jesus modeled a life of dangerous faith. And if you don't believe it, open up Matthew. Jesus modeled a life of dangerous faith. Active discipleship breaks us free from the ordinary so we can take part in the extraordinary. We're called to go into the jungle, to leave the comfortable path, to go where the dinosaurs are. Our reading today comes out of Ruth. If you have your Bible with you, if you see one next to you, take a moment to turn to Ruth. We'll be on chapter 1. If you're at home, get your Bible out, pause. Ruth chapter 1, and as you find it, I'm going to set the scene for us a little bit because we're going to start on verse 6. So I'm going to set the scene leading into verse 6. We have this family unit, and you're going to have to forgive me because these are Old Testament names, and I am not living in the Old Testament. So you have Elimelech and his wife Naomi, and they have 2 sons. And as they're living together in Bethlehem, a famine strikes the land. This famine strikes the land, and the family goes, well, we can't stay here. Right? Being smart people, they realize that they cannot provide for their family. It's going to be very difficult to build a life here. So knowing off of the experience of those that have come before, they decide to leave. They decide to leave, and Elimelech and his family, they move from Judah to the country of Moab. Now, I did what every good student does, and I did some Googling. It's a 50-mile journey. That's a 50-mile journey, and it's not like a nice Indiana 50 miles. Okay? It's a mountainous, hilly, rocky 50 miles. It would be like walking from here to Marion or walking from here to Paulding, Ohio, over the mountains, Through the woods to Grandma's house we go. 50 miles. People before them had done this, right? They didn't just spur of the moment say, well, I guess we're going to go to Moab, right? They knew the journey. They were following the guides of people who had gone before, and so they moved to Moab. And while they were there, their sons found wives, right? I mean, that's the path to take. Their sons found wives. The land was plentiful. They were able to live together and raise their family and really dig in and establish a life together. But eventually, as time goes on, Amalek passes away. And he leaves behind Naomi, his two sons, and their wives, Ruth and Orpah. And after 10 years of living together in this family unit, the sons pass away as well, leaving Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah. An older Naomi who's there to take care of her daughter-in-laws. So now, as we read together in Ruth chapter 1, we're going to begin on verse 6. And Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had blessed his people in Judah by giving them good crops again. So Naomi and her daughter-in-laws, they got ready to leave Moab, to return to their homeland. With her two daughter-in-laws, she set out from the place where she had been living, and they took the road that would lead them back to Judah. But on the way, Naomi said to her two daughter-in-laws, "Go back to your mother's homes. May the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage." And she kissed them goodbye, and they all broke down and wept. "No," they said, "we want to go with you to your people." But Naomi replied, "Why should you go with me? Can I still give birth to other sons? Who would grow up to be your husbands? No, my daughters, return to your parents' homes, for I'm too old to marry again. And even if it were possible, and I were to get married tonight and bear sons, then what? Would you wait for them to grow up and refuse to just marry someone else? No, of course not, my daughters. Things are far more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord himself has raised his fists against me." Again they wept together, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. But Ruth clung tightly to Naomi. "Look," Naomi said to her, "your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. You should do the same." But Ruth replied, "Don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I ever allow anything but death to separate us." And when Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she said nothing more. Now, it's easy to look at this story and cheer for Ruth, right? Yeah, Ruth, way to go, right? I mean, she doesn't need no man. She's going to follow Naomi. But let's set aside our modern view of this. Let's set aside our perspective and meet Naomi and Ruth and Orpah where they're at, on the trail in the jungle. You see, Naomi wasn't some elderly woman stuck in an antiquated mindset. She was a wise trail guide. She knew the path that was out ahead of them, and that they had left the path that Ruth and Orpah needed to be on. They were headed into the jungle, and they were in danger of being lost. Orpah wasn't abandoning her mother in some Disney princess attempt to find love. She was in the middle of this difficult reality, and she knew it. They were standing in the dark jungle, and she heard the growling coming from the shadows. The trail was almost out of sight, and she knew she had to turn back. And then there's Ruth. She wasn't a rebellious feminist fighting the patriarchy. She was a grieving woman, broken by the loss of her family. And she saw the hopelessness of her mother-in-law, and she refused to let Naomi suffer and walk alone in the jungle. Now, I'm sure if we could go back in time and ask the people who lived around Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah what they thought of the situation, they would have said, even though it's really difficult, Orpah made the right choice. And Ruth Well, she was just too blinded by grief. And I feel bad that she had to go that way. Having seen those who walked the trail before them, all three women knew what was coming next. The life of a widow in the ancient world was not easy. No land, no source of income, relying on the charity of others just to get by. They knew that they'd fallen off the trail. They were in the jungle. And like any experienced hiker, Naomi knew how the two girls could get back. She knew she could protect her daughters and send them back on the right path. Go back to your mother's homes, and may the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage. And Orpah took the advice. But Ruth, in the face of fear, anxiety, discomfort, uncertainty, she decided to stay in the jungle. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live, and your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Ruth stayed in the jungle surrounded by dinosaurs. It's a scary moment, right? Like, that's the tension point in that movie. There's dinosaurs in the jungle. There are dinosaurs in the jungle, and the moment we leave the path, we are being hunted. Do you get that? The moment you step off the path, the moment you hear the call and go boldly into the darkness, you are being hunted. We were created to go into the jungle, to follow the example of Jesus that he set before us. He's the guide who's been there before. He looks to lead us forward in peace, love, and hope. And following in his steps, we have to stay in the Spirit, because there's dinosaurs in the jungle. And if you think I'm crazy, you've all heard the growling from the shadows. You've heard it and you've stayed on the path. You and I were not created to stay on the trail of the world. We were created to go into the jungle, into a broken and hurting world. Obedient discipleship leads us off of the wide path and into the mess of the world. And in the shadows, the enemy is lurking because he's wanting to devour you, to prevent you from following the one who matters. And whether you've experienced those moments firsthand or not, you know it's there, and the fear of the enemy keeps us on the path to try and make us turn back. And you've all seen those people who've left the path before us. We've seen the people who've been consumed. Some pridefully walk off the path, thinking that they have the strength, the knowledge, the skill to be able to continue forward on their own. I know that this way is not working. I'm going to go out there. Blinded by their pride, they're just chopping around in the darkness, not really knowing where they're going. Some people storm off the path in anger, sick of the crowd, sick of everything that's going on, and so they angrily storm out, ripping vines down, breaking branches, until they get to a point where they can no longer see the trail. Angry at themselves, they just turn into this monster that can't help but destroy everything in front of them, because if I cut down enough trees, I'll find my way back. And then here's the one dinosaur that consumes the most people: fear. The fear of not knowing what's ahead. The fear of being overwhelmed at heading into the darkness. The fear of leaving the path and being forgotten. Fear is what keeps us on the trail. It prevents us from following the call. But to stay on the trail, to stick to what is comfortable, to stick to what we feel like we have control over, it actually doesn't lead anywhere. Like any good trail, it's a big loop. If you've gone hiking before, you realize where you started is where you'll end, or else you lost the trail, right? If we stick to the trail, you're going to just keep going in a circle until you reach a moment where you realize, I think I've seen that tree before. We weren't created to stick to the trail. We are created to go into the jungle. We're called as disciples to go into the jungle where the dinosaurs are. And the secret to answering the call, to not being consumed by those who are lurking in the darkness, is revealed to us by Ruth. Don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Where you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. That's active discipleship, isn't it? Jesus, where you go, I will go. Where you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and Christ, your God, will be my God. Active discipleship is about abiding in him, dwelling in him, staying in him. John chapter 12, verses 44 through 46. Jesus shouted to the crowds, "If you trust me, you're not trusting only me, but also the God who sent me. For when you see me, you are seeing the one who sent me. I have come as a light to shine in this dark world, so all who put their trust in me will no longer remain in the dark." The dangerous prayer of obedient discipleship, "Here I am, send me." We were created to go into a broken and hurting world. Listening to the Spirit of God, following the example that Jesus lived before us. Jesus said to his disciples, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me." Have you ever heard something that just ignites a fire in you? That sends you out onto the path where you don't know where you're headed, but you know you have to go. The spark that Jesus sets within us ignites a fire that fuels us to go into the jungle, surrounded by dinosaurs, surrounded by the growling of the enemy that we cannot see. And in the midst of all of that, we're called to stay. Where you go, I go. Where you live, I live. Your people are my people, and your God will be my God. The dinosaurs are out there, and what dinosaurs are keeping you from following the call that God has placed on your heart? Are you blinded by pride? Are you driven by anger, or are you constantly running in fear? This morning, my prayer for you is that you calm your heart, you steady your breathing, that you don't move, and you hear the voice of the one who called you. The voice of the Lord echoes above the sea. The God of glory thunders. The Lord thunders over the mighty sea. The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is majestic. The voice of the Lord splits the mighty cedars. The Lord shatters the cedars of Lebanon. The voice of the Lord makes the barren wilderness quake, and the Lord shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. The Lord rules over the floodwaters. The Lord reigns as king forever, and the Lord gives his people strength, and the Lord blesses them with peace. We're called to go into a broken and hurting world, to live obediently, to fulfill his will, and to bring others into the light of truth. Because whether you realize it or not, your story, the life that you are living, whether you're led by the one who matters or you're running from the dinosaurs in the forest, your story is a trail guide to those following behind you. Your story, it matters. And are you leading those behind you into a place where they can abide in him? Or are you leading them into the darkness? Are you leading those who are following behind you to a place where they can stay in the one who matters? Or are you leading them to the place where they'll be devoured? And all God's people said, amen.